Greetings, all you die casters out there, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor. Music. This is Undeclared Bajor, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
What up?
Today, we're going to recap, discuss, and rate Season 3, Episode 21, The Die is Cast. Subtitle, And It Came Up Snake Eyes.
Okay, yeah, no, it kind of, yeah.
Can one die come up snake eyes? Sure.
Snake eye, you know.
Snake eye, yeah.
Yeah, right.
All right. Title review for this episode. What do you think?
I like it, actually.
Yeah.
It's evocative. We're moving more into the era where they're pulling out some of these kind of titles as opposed to just like random words that maybe somehow fit. And yeah. I can go with that.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think it's pretty much spot on. I mean, the Die is Cast is, I believe, what Julius Caesar said when he crossed the Rubicon.
Yeah. I mean, in Latin, but yeah.
Right, I assume, yeah. So, yeah, not a bad title. Our discussion will contain full spoilers for the series up through this episode. However, we will try to keep spoilers for later in the series to an appropriate minimum. We won't reveal anything too big. Like when the crew of Deep Space Nine is joined by that beloved next-gen regular, Wesley Crusher.
I mean, it was unexpected.
Yeah. I just like when it's like Wesley Crusher comes up the turbo lift, and then Chief O'Brien looks over and he's like, "Oh, God, no. Dear God, no."
Hey, Will Wheaton got to eat too.
True. This episode originally aired May 1st, 1995. It was written by Ronald D. Moore and directed by David Livingston. So,
yeah, nobody weird or new here.
Yep, just a couple of Deep Space Nine pros hard at work.
A working title of this episode was Improbable Cause Part 2. And I guess they decided, let's not do that. Like, in my mind, since this was not, the whole thing was not originally going to be a two-parter, as we learned previously, they already had this script, and it already had a title, and they're like, oh, it's a two-parter now, so we got to call it this, right? And everybody's sitting around thinking how much better The Die is Cast is than Improbable Cause Part 2, and they're like, maybe we just don't?
Yeah, I think it's part of the whole thing, where they're like, they suddenly have a second part that's like, we gotta do something about this title, because... Okay, so what happens in this episode? Chief O'Brien has lunch with Dr. Bashir, while Bashir vents about the sorry state of modern Earth theater, which he feels focuses too much on alien stories while neglecting Earth's rich culture. I can kind of just imagine, like, Dr. Bashir on Twitter.
What's up with all these remakes?
Yeah.
I can absolutely see why, like, popular culture on Earth, even though it's been like, you know, a couple hundred years or something since we made contact with aliens, but just looking at movies and stuff today, and, you know, it's all like remakes or adaptations or sequels or whatever. I'm like, I could absolutely picture in the 24th century or whatever, there's been a 50-year span where they're mostly remaking alien stuff to get get that sweet, don't have to be too creative money. Although it's not money because it's the Federation.
Right.
But, you know.
It's like, we got the rights to that Klingon classic. Let's make it. But Dr. Bashir finds the conversation unsatisfying, as the chief is not much one for conversation during lunch, or so he says. I think he just does not want to talk about theater or anything else Dr. Bashir is interested in.
Yeah, like, I don't know if Chief O'Brien goes to watch plays. Like, that may just not be his deal. And that's really on Bashir for going off on this conversation, since if he should really know what O'Brien is interested in, or at the very least, when you start out the conversation, be like, you don't just jump into it. You're like, hey, what do you think of this latest play that just got put on? And then if he's interested in that sort of thing, you move into your rant.
Obviously, he's just like, I need somebody to pretend to be Garrick.
Yeah, right. I wonder if Garrick is interested in Earth theater.
I'm sure he'd have some things to say. But they speculate what might have happened to Garrick and Odo. Chief O'Brien points out that no debris was found of the runabout, so maybe that's a good sign. Just then, the chief gets a call from Kira. Hey, can you come to Ops and look at this? Which I'd be like, why don't you fucking tell me what it is right now, and then I'll come.
Right? Yeah.
Like, what is all this dramatics? Like, you need to see this. It's like, can you just tell me, please? I'm eating my fettuccine or whatever.
It's very classic Star Trek. I noticed after I started watching the Everything Wrong With videos, because one of the things he's always calling us, like, better come and take a look at this cliche. Uh-huh. And then, like, Geordi especially is constantly guilty of this, where he's like, Captain, you better come and take a look at this.
Yeah. And it turns out to be useless, because he goes up there and they're like, hey, check out these weird readings we're getting. He's like, oh, what am I supposed to do about this? I'm the guy who's an expert on what's going on inside the space station. It's like, Dax is the person who, like, needs to know what this is.
Also, I have to say, the fact that, like, you can so easily detect their giant cloaked fleet really doesn't bode well, even if the operation had not had any leaks whatsoever.
I mean, maybe just the fleet is so big, and they all have to gather in such a small space to go through the wormhole.
Yeah.
It's just, like, impossible to hide it.
Although, we see the screen, and it's like, you see, before any of them decloak, you see, like, what's clearly the individual ships, because then one of those dots decloaks and turns into a ship.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, they shouldn't be able to. We're even told that they specifically changed up the cloaking devices so that they can't be detected, like happened to the Defiant previously.
Right. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, a bunch of Romulan and Cardassian ships start decloaking, and I guess just going through the wormhole single file or something.
Yeah, I wonder why you need to decloak to go through the wormhole.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
The Founders gotta have something watching the other end of the wormhole, right? Like, they'd be stupid not to.
That's true. Like, at least like a telescope zoomed way in on it or something. Yeah. But back on Tane's Warbird, Tane and Garrick reminisce about the good old days of torture and framing people for treason.
Because you don't like their voice.
Yep. Over what appear to be grapefruit mimosas. It's like, Although they apparently don't like them, because later they complain about Romulan cuisine.
Yeah, what can you do? I mean, why is Tane even on a Warbird? There's tons of Cardassian ships.
This is a good point. This is a very good point. I guess he likes to hang out with his friend, Commander Lovak.
Yeah, it's his good buddy.
But Garrick looks forward to exacting his revenge against Gul Dukat over some business with an arms merchant, which is the first time we're hearing about this.
Well, I mean, I think it's previously been implied that it was, like, something to do with Dukat's dad, but that was all we knew, and then it was like, and now it's like there's an arms merchant, so I was like, wait, so was it his dad and an arms merchant, or did he have a separate run-in with Gul, his first name I believe is Scrane Dukat, that involved an arms merchant, or, like, I don't know.
At first, I was trying to figure out if this is a reference to one of the many arms smuggling plans we've had on the show. But
there have been multiple ones.
I couldn't think of one that fit exactly, so I don't know. And the way Tane talked about it, it was like something from the old days. So yeah. I don't know. And then Tane also mentions that he's planning on having Milo whacked. And then the two get into this weird argument about, it's like, well, if you don't want her killed, just say so. It's okay. It's like, well, no, I think you don't want her killed, so you should just say so.
Nobody can show weakness by not wanting to murder an old woman. That would be crazy.
It wouldn't do. It wouldn't do. But then, yes, a Romulan guy comes in whom Tane introduces as Colonel Lovak. And I do notice the new Tal Shiar uniforms now.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have if you hadn't brought them up. They're definitely less puffy.
I don't mind the absence of puff. I'm good with it.
It's fine. Tane also suggests that Garrick should interrogate Odo and find out any extra info he has on the Founders. So Garrett goes to the not prison cell where Odo is being held, which is totally a prison cell.
Well, it's some quarters. Some quarters that just happen to have force fields and guards.
Those bunk beds look really familiar, by the way.
Yeah, they're probably just, straight out of something else.
I'm pretty sure those are the Defiant bunk beds. But And then Garrett does this great little bit, because Odo's like, how could you? He's like, I know you feel betrayed. I mean, after I swore my undying allegiance to the Federation and all this stuff. And Odo's like, okay, ha 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 ha. Garrett asks what Odo knows about the Founders. Odo basically tells him to fuck off.
Yeah, it definitely tells him to, yeah.
And then Garrick says that the Founders are their common enemy. But Odo retorts like, no, our common enemy is Tane. You just don't know it.
Take that, Garrick.
Back on Deep Space Nine. The senior staff watch a video that Tane made explaining his whole plan. So that was nice of him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like, okay, hey, just guys, heads up. Here's what I'm doing.
Very considerate.
And hey, look, it's Michael Eddington. He's been here the whole time. What are you talking about?
Yeah, 100%. He has absolutely been here. And his reintroduction in this episode is not at all because they need someone who can betray the group without us, caring.
Right. I just love how they carry on like he's been a member of the crew the whole time. But yeah, in the video, Tane is like, the Jem'Hadar probably won't like us killing their gods, so probably get ready for that.
Yep.
And then after the video, Starfleet Admiral comes on and says that the Cardassian and Romulan governments both claim ignorance of the plan, but have all decided on a let's wait and see how this plays out stance.
And then it turns out the Federation has also decided on a let's wait and see how this plays out stance.
Right. Yeah, it's like Kira's like, well, we got to do something, right? And then the Admiral's like, do we?
Apparently, there's a couple interesting things about this Admiral.
Uh-huh.
First, it says that he holds the honor of being the first Admiral in Star Trek to be wearing Operations Gold. So I guess you don't come up through operations and make it all the way to Admiral very often.
He's a gold admiral.
And then also there is a deleted scene with him, and I'm not sure if it's this appearance or the one at the end of the episode.
Uh-huh.
But Todman mentions that he had bet 2 cases of Saurian brandy on Bashir winning the Carrington Award earlier that year. Since Bashir lost, he also lost, and he comments, I don't like to lose.
I see. I mean, obviously the money was on, what was that person's name, like Petrel or something?
Guy Petrel is the one that won? All the money was on on one of them, and then that one is like, oh no, it turns out they're not going to win. And then...
I thought Petrel was the one that the money was on and someone else won, but whatever.
Okay, hold on. We're gonna find out about the Carrington Award now. We already did this once. We're doing it again, people. Dr. April Wade was the one who was nominated but did not win. But everyone was like, "Oh man, Dr. Wade!" And then Guy Petrel, Chirurgian Guy Petrel of Andoria,
right. Chirurgian or whatever that is, or chirurgeon. That's right.
Yeah. It was Henry Roget was the winner of the Carrington Award.
The dark horse of the Carrington Awards. So yeah, Sisko wants to take the Defiant into the Gamma Quadrant to rescue Odo, but the Admiral says no, keep the Defiant at Deep Space Nine and use it to protect Bajor. But as soon as the Admiral hangs up, Sisko's like, yeah, fuck that. Let's take the Defiant into the Gamma Quadrant. And
screw that guy. We're going to do the thing that he said not to do.
And then all the main characters, including Eddington, the guy who's been here the whole time, load into the Defiant. And hey, look, Jones is there too.
He can't let Odo get taken. He loves Odo.
It's like Jones secretly really cares for Odo.
Yeah.
Then they get a call from the Admiral being like, hey, stop that. But Sisko's like, what did he say? Too much interference.
We're going through a tunnel. A wormhole. We can't hear you. Bye.
What? So yeah, they fly through the wormhole, then get their cloak on, setting course for the Founder planet in the Omarian Nebula. Back on the Warbird, Tane and Lovok lay out the plan to fly to the Founder planet and just shoot at the planet until everything is dead.
It was a complex plan with a lot of ins and outs.
Right. It's like, we'll shoot all of our guns at the same time at the planet, and then everything will die. That should more than take care of the Founders, says someone. Unless, of course, there's some Founders not on the planet. And then Tane tells Garrick, hey, you better go torture Odo just in case he knows of any secret defenses or something. And to help you, we have this cool device we came up with to keep him from shapeshifting. Garrick is reluctant, and Tane suggests Lovok should do it, but Garrick is like, no, I'll do it. Back on the Defiant, they suddenly start having problems with the cloak.
The coke.
All
her cocaine is tainted. Oh no.
The coke machine is broken. It keeps eating everybody's latinum.
I knew we shouldn't have contracted with them. Should have gone for Pepsi.
Yep. Eddington is like, someone sabotaged the cloaking device. Me! Oh no, how could our trusted and beloved friend Michael Eddington have done this?
After all of the years that we've spent together.
I think this in the scene he has this line like, Odo is my friend too, which is like, wow, really?
Yeah, we've never seen any indication that they were friends, and kind of the opposite of that.
I guess they developed a friendship that we didn't see.
Could be.
But Sisko just tells O'Brien, hey, go fix the cloaking device. And he's like, Eddington, go to your quarters. He's like, no, I should stay here and do my job. And Sisko's like, okay.
The classic, how long will the repairs take? And he goes, 10 hours. You have 2. Get on it. Like, captains, man.
Oh, jeez. So Garrick shows up in Odo's cell and has some Romulans set up the anti-shapeshifting device, which is a little weird because earlier the Romulans didn't know about that device.
Yeah, it's like the Cardassians invented it in the Obsidian Order, and then maybe there's just no like low-level Cardassians on board this warbird that Tane can order around.
True. So did he like explain to them how to put the device together? And
had to give him a tutorial.
I don't know. Odo is initially unconcerned about the prospect of being tortured by Garrick.
It is a great line delivery where he's just like, oh no, you're gonna torture me?
Yeah, he seems a little confident, but then turns out that anti-shapeshifting device works. And unfortunately, it's almost time for him to regenerate. So, yeah, it's no good for him. And then we cut back to the Defiant briefly to see Kira being impatient about O'Brien's repairs. And then Sisko's like, just leave O'Brien alone. He'll do it. And then we cut back again and to Odo and Garrick, and suddenly Odo is just not looking good.
Yeah. This is, I think, my biggest complaint about this episode is that I think we could have used a more gradual descent into, like, tortured Odo. Like, you could have cut out all of the Michael Eddington.
Yeah.
And just, like, they left the station a little bit later, and they could have still gotten to the battle exactly when they got there and saved everything, and you could have put in, like, one more good scene where Odo's trying to resist what's going on, and Garrick's, like, getting some more smarmy, superior talk in. Like, it feels like really sudden that it goes from one to the other.
Yeah, those are pretty much 2 notes I have for later. Is like, number 1, the Michael Eddington mutiny or whatever just feels like filler and doesn't contribute anything. And number 2, this like really brief torture scene of Odo admitting that he wants to go back to his people, where while I like the idea of like trying to set up this parallel between like Garrick and Odo, where they both want to have, they want to go back to their own people, even though that's not really possible. But I feel like the scene itself is a little kind of wedged in, or I don't know, just something about it just doesn't really gel. I don't know. But yeah, Odo taunts Garrick about his love of torture, but reveals nothing of value except that he wishes he was back home with his own people in the Great Link. And then so Garrick finally relents and lets him regenerate, looking quite ashamed of himself. O'Brien has finally gotten the cloak fixed, and they get back on their way to the Founder planet, so that whole story is over, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. I guess I should have... Well, there's a couple of good notes about that scene that I wasn't thinking about when you were describing it. I was just thinking
the torture scene?
Yeah. Ira Stephen Bear says about that this episode was a chance to remind viewers that Garrick is not a typical good guy. And so his quote is, "We wanted to show what he's capable of, even if he doesn't want to do it. Could you torture someone if you had to? Garrick can."
Interesting way to put that.
Yeah. Let's see. And Andrew Robinson was a big fan of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because not the specifically because of the torture, but because he feels in that scene there's a moment that subverts Garrick's usual method of communication, where with Garrick usually everything is subtext. Like what he's actually saying isn't relevant most of the time. It's like body language and facial expressions and other stuff. But when he gets down on his knees and is like begging Odo, just tell me anything, suddenly there's no subtext. The subtext is the text for Garrick at that moment.
Yeah. You just like say anything so I can stop torturing you.
Yeah. And Rene Auberjonois has, he says, I felt like some character from King Lear. The acting method I used was very Shakespearean. In that scene, specifically.
Another reference to Shakespeare. Interesting. So Garrick reports to Odo that Odo didn't have any useful information. So Tane suggests that they should just have him executed. And then Garrick is like, but maybe the Bajorans and Federation wouldn't like that? And then Lovok steps in and points out that some founders might not be on the planet when they destroy it. And he offers to take Odo back to Romulus for further study.
Yeah, I'm sure the Federation and Bajorans will like that way better.
Yeah. But after that chat, Lovok pulls Garrick aside and asks him what his angle is. And Garrick acts like he doesn't know what he's talking about, but Lovok is like, I'm watching you.
Freaking Lovok, man.
Yep, that Lovok, he's onto him. Finally, they arrive at the Founder homeworld and start shooting at it, as per plan. However, they detect no change in life form readings. And then Garrick notices that they're faking the life signs. And then so, I guess they just set up some really lazy, like, life sign fakers.
Yeah, they like, don't decrease the numbers or whatever. It's not, honestly, I don't even know why they needed to fake the life signs.
Yeah.
Like, the whole fleet is here. They decloak, and then they would have been like, oh shit, there's no life signs.
Yep. Yeah, once they're there, it's too late.
Yeah, it's already
Although maybe, like, they were worried they might send a scout ahead or something.
Yeah, it could be. Also, going all the way back to the beginning, because I didn't think about it until just now. Like, there's a thing where they're like, okay, so here's the Founder's homeworld. We somehow know for a fact that there are no Jem'Hadar outposts within, like, an 8-hour journey of the Founder's homeworld. So by the time they call, if they call for help, by the time help gets here, it'll be way too late. And I was like, that seems really unlikely.
Yeah.
That the Founders would have set up their empire so they have no defenses anywhere near their homeworld.
Yeah, I think Tane should have been suspicious of that, for sure. But suddenly, a bazillion Jem'Hadar ships start coming out of the nebula. And then props to Colonel Lovok for playing his role so well, because they're like, ships are coming out of the nebula. And he's like, what kind of ships? Like, he's really into it.
Yeah, which is funny, because there's now no reason for him to be pretending to be the guy anymore. Like, he, not only is he into it, he, like, you know, he's taking command, he's ordering firing patterns and stuff, and then when communication goes out with engineering, he's like, I'm going to go down to engineering. And then eventually he teleports away, and I was just like, I mean, there's no reason not to just teleport away. I guess maybe he wanted to make sure Odo got out. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah, he's got to watch out for Odo. And, well, also he like, ordered, like, Tane wants to get away, but he's like, no, we can't get away. We better cluster all our ships together in one place so they can blow us all up at once.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, we can make a last stand. And then Garrick has a great, it's a trap moment. And then, Tane is like, how could this have happened? And Garrick quotes Julius Caesar at him.
Yep.
Saying, the fault is not in our stars, but in ourselves. And then he runs off to rescue Odo. And then the two of them are confronted by Lovok, who gives them the key to the runabout and reveals that he's a founder. Oh my gosh. It's like, oh right, the founders are changelings and can look like anybody. Maybe somebody should have thought of that.
Like, Garrick's like, you engineered this whole thing. And he's like, well, not exactly. I mean, it actually was Tane's idea. We just really helped it along.
Yeah, we have this great moment where he explains the whole thing to them and therefore us. So that we're not confused about anything. But yeah, the plan is basically to wipe out the Tal Shiar and the Obsidian Order all in one fell swoop, so that the Klingons and the Federation will be the only threat left, even though wasn't that Cardassian fleet, like the regular Cardassian military still exists, right?
Yep. Well, I mean, so does the Romulan military. So,
Well, yeah. I don't know if like the Tal Shiar had their own secret fleet or whatever, but
I think the Tal Shiar, unlike the Obsidian Order, I think the Tal Shiar are allowed to have ships because I'm pretty sure we've seen some like Tal Shiar ships before. But it was like their whole fleet was like 30 ships or something, we're told, or I don't remember how many.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how much the threat is actually reduced, but
well, I mean, I assume that it's more the manpower of like, you can't be spies if you don't have anybody left to spy.
True. I mean, it's better than nothing for sure. And then Lovok offers to take Odo back to the Great Link, but Odo refuses, even though he just said he wanted to go back.
Yep.
And then Garrick decides to go back to the bridge and try to get Tane to come with him. But Tane is like in some sort of weird trance. And he's just rambling on about how he's gotten old and slow. And it's like, oh yeah, I probably should have thought that Lovok might be a founder. That was kind of stupid on my part. And then Garrick keeps trying to pull him away, but Odo just comes up and punches Garrick and then carries him off.
It's good, yeah. Good solid punch. I had to look up the Battle of the Omarion Nebula. Mm-hmm. So there are 5 Dideridax-class warbirds and 15 Keldon-class cruisers.
Okay.
So really, the Romulans didn't commit that much. I mean, in cloaking devices, since they provided all the cloaking devices for the Keldon-class ships, but...
yeah.
I like it lists as co-belligerent with the Obsidian Order and the Tal Shiar, the Federation. Because of that one Defiant-class ship that shows up.
Sure. So yeah, they fly, Garrick and Odo get in the runabout, they fly away, but they soon lose shields and appear to be about to die. Which shouldn't Odo call up the Jem'Hadar and be like, hey, I'm a founder, stop shooting.
Yeah, that was my immediate thought. Like, be like, hey, changeling here.
Yeah. But Garrick uses this moment to be like, yeah, my bad for dragging you into this.
And torturing you.
But Odo's like, nah, I get it.
We're cool.
Yeah. And then, luckily at the last minute, the Defiant swoops in and rescues them. And then Odo and Kira have a little moment. Just gotta touch that little thread for a second. And then back on Deep Space Nine, the Admiral calls and is like, talking to Sisko, he's like, you rascal, you. I might just have to promote you for disobeying me. And then Garrick looks through the ruins of his shop, which I remind you he blew up himself.
Yep. Don't feel sorry for him.
Yep. When Odo comes in and is like, hey, thanks for not telling anyone that I told you I wanted to go back to the Great Link. And then Garrick's like, you mean when I tortured you? Yeah, don't mention it. And then Odo's like, hey, we should get breakfast sometime. And Garrick's like, wait, I thought you didn't eat. And then Odo's like, I don't. And then Garrick gets this really terrified look on his face.
I like the way that shot is framed. Like, the whole conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it looks very cool.
Garrick in the foreground and then, like, kind of a shadowy... It's kind of like from last episode when Odo was in the foreground and his, like, shadowy, like, card throat informant was in the background.
Yeah. It is like that.
Kind of a little mirror shot. So I guess maybe Odo and Garrick are going to be buddies now or something. Oh, yep, the end of that episode.
The end.
The end of Deep Space Nine.
The visual effects supervisor was instructed to come up with a way to portray the Battle of the Omarion Nebula without going over budget.
Okay.
His solution was to create transparencies of the models of the Romulan warbirds and Cardassian ships, and then use them in the background. Coupled with the fact they were in the background, he made sure the camera never lingered on one too long. So I guess that was a cheap way to not have to like computer animate all that.
Yeah, it looked pretty good, I thought.
This is the biggest on-screen battle in Star Trek history up to this point.
Huh. Even in the movies and stuff?
I mean, according to this.
Cool.
Yeah, what have we had a bunch of big like ship battles in the movies?
I guess not. Just, like people confronting V'ger and
yeah.
I guess it's been mostly like 1v1 ship battles.
Mm-hmm.
And then like, the Enterprise versus God or whatever.
So as part of the battle, we started shooting motion capture on February 21st and delivered it on April 21st. We had 20 days motion control shooting. Yes, motion control, not motion capture.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
a record for a 1-hour show at the time. Also, the shot where the Defiant destroys a Jem'Hadar fighter and then flies through the debris took 4 days to film by itself.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of work went into this.
Yeah. I mean, you could definitely tell they were, like, stepping up the special effects, so.
The Battle of the Omerion Nebula was considered groundbreaking by DS9's VFX artists due to the extremely high quantity of ships portrayed in the incident.
So it was considered groundbreaking by the people who did it?
I guess that's how this is written, yeah.
I won't argue with them.
There's also notes in here that, like, back when they had Defiant, they established this military build-up, and the writers hadn't actually figured out what it was going to be about. Renee Echevarria says, we had a vague idea of a first strike, but we didn't really know more than that. And it wasn't until Improbable Cause that they started to realize that the military escalation was in preparation by the Obsidian Order and the Tal Shiar against the Dominion. But even at that time, they were planning that the Cardassians were to be halted in their plans because of Garrick essentially blackmailing Tain at the end of the episode.
Uh-huh.
So I guess that whole thing where he's like, I've got these records on you if you don't let us go, and also completely shut down your giant project, stuff's going to be revealed about you. Tain, single-handedly is like, okay, we won't invade anybody. That really would have been a poor ending.
Yeah, this makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
For sure.
David Livingston says, I think the scene where Garrick tortures Odo is the best in the episode. It's very intense, very dramatic, very powerful. It's one of the best scenes I've ever been involved in. I put it on my director's reel.
Oh. For when he needs to get a job. I guess he's occasionally going to go out and get jobs with other shows and stuff, so.
Yeah. And, okay, what else? So, at this point, when Lovok is like, the only threats left are the Federation and the Klingons, and they won't be a threat for much longer, they had no idea what that meant.
Uh-huh.
They put that line in there, and they're like, we'll do something with it later.
Yeah, I mean, well, at the very least, I think people need to step up their game towards realizing that shapeshifters are among us.
Right.
And maybe find some way to deal with that.
True.
Because this seems to have blindsided a lot of people.
Yeah, it's like, oh, wait, that can happen?
These people who can look like anybody can look like one of us? And then trick us into doing something?
I assume they think that, if Dominion ships carrying changelings came through the wormhole, we would notice.
True.
So they can't possibly be hanging around here, right?
The Dominion is the only side that has figured out that you can fly through the wormhole while cloaked.
I just assume the Founders get on other ships somehow.
Yeah, probably that too. Hey, check out this great Gamma Quadrant vase.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I'll take this on my ship.
First episode with Ira Stephen Bear as executive producer.
Huh.
And the last episode to feature a clean-shaven Sisko. Slight spoiler for next episode.
Yeah, facial hair is a spoiler.
Yeah. Yet another episode that Cyril Lofton does not appear in. I feel like he hasn't shown up in forever at this point.
Yeah, he's been away for a while. And I meant to look up if Morden was in the episode. I was looking for him, but I don't think he's been in this two-parter at all.
Yeah, Quark wasn't in this one either, so
yeah.
There's not a whole lot of opportunity for Morden to show up, I guess.
And then Dax was barely in it, especially last episode. I was going through taking screenshots of last episode, and Dax is in one scene at the conference table. I was like, oh hey, look, it's Dax. I
like the quote from Garrick at the end where he's like, you know what the sad part is? I'm a very good tailor.
Yeah.
You poor man.
Yeah, Quark wants to put a Thai massage place in there or something, or
yeah, it must get pretty adult because Garrick's like, yeah, I don't think Sisko's gonna approve that.
Yeah, Odo's like, well, maybe we just need a tailor shop. I don't care, my clothes are made out of me. I did like the makeup when Odo was being tortured.
Yeah, look good.
It's both him and his costume are both looking really rough because his costume is part of him.
Right.
And then when he finally regenerates, there's a million little goo bubbles that come and coalesce with him or whatever. So it's like, I guess you can lose little pieces of yourself and still be okay.
Yeah.
And get them back later. Much like in Terminator 2, Judgment Day. When that piece of him broke off and then he was able
to his foot later.
Yeah.
See, and that's another thing. It's like that makeup does look really good, but I'm like, why couldn't we have like a halfway there? Or like where it's just starting? Because Odo's never experienced this before. And so he's like, no, I'm fine. And then all of a sudden, like, he starts to peel, and he's like, oh, holy crap, what's going on?
Yeah, that probably would have been a little bit better, where he's just slowly like, whoa, this is not good. And then Garrick's like, you better start talking soon. We don't know what's going to happen.
But no, we needed Michael Eddington betraying the crew and then getting off. I mean, honestly, you can't really blame him, as Cisco doesn't really blame him for being like, no, I'm the only one here actually following orders.
Right. And I think he said the Admiral told him to do it. So
yeah, like the Admiral directly told me that I had to stop you. So you can't really hold that against him too much. But yeah, it's just like Michael Eddington shows up and you're like, okay, he's here for a reason. Something's going to happen with this guy. So you're not really surprised when he turns out to be a narc or whatever.
Yeah, it's like Michael Eddington's in the episode and he does nothing. That would have been a little weird. It's like maybe they're trying to bluff us again that Odo might die for real this time, or
okay.
He might go back to the Founders, or who knows.
I don't think Cisco wants this guy as his head of security, even if Odo doesn't come back. He's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna get somebody else. Maybe who's head of security on the Enterprise? Maybe we'll talk to that guy.
Yeah. Or just put Jones in charge, whatever.
Yeah, why not Jones? Which, now that I think about it, if Eddington has been here the whole time, then that one time where Odo was taking the day off to go to the festival and he's like briefing Jones on being in charge of security while he's out, that really should have been Eddington.
Yeah. Well, Eddington also had the day off.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
So, or maybe Jones outranks Eddington or something. It's just that we just never discuss it or mention it.
Have you ever seen them in the same place at the same time?
Ooh, I think in this episode.
Yeah, in this episode we did.
So, interesting theory, though. Interesting theory.
I want to see if Jones is in the credits here. Oh, yeah, uncredited co-stars. Randy James as Jones.
Yep. Yeah, I saw him. He was just like standing there on the bridge of the Defiant. I was like, hey, Jones.
I like how in the list of guest stars, you've got Lovak, you've got Michael Eddington, you've got Todman, and then you have Andrew Robinson as Garrick, but Garrick is the only of these names in quotes for some reason.
Huh. Is it a clue?
Oh, and then Aberantane is in quotes. But he's like under a separate section where it's like, and this guy.
Maybe it's a clue that they're both Founders, actually.
But Lovak doesn't get quotes.
Yeah.
So maybe the people not in quotes are Founders. Michael Eddington and Admiral Todman.
Oh my gosh. They very well could be.
Admiral Todman was played by Leon Russum, who also played Bill, the Starfleet Commander-in-Chief in Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country.
Huh.
Some game sources have given Bill's last name as Todman, indicating there might be a relation between the two of them.
Oh, nice.
That's also mentioned. I looked at Ducat's article earlier, and it's like, there's one of the Star Trek books establishes that Ducat and Massette are like cousins, and that's why they look exactly the same.
Sure, identical twin cousins, like in Twin Peaks.
Yeah. Or, what was that? There was a show on, like, Nick at Night when I was a kid about identical cousins. The Patty Duke Show.
I do not remember that one. Was Patty Duke the twins?
Yes.
Nice. I'm sure, like, Ducat and Massette were doing, like, parent trap situations and stuff when they were kids.
Mm-hmm. Probably.
It's like, hey, you should pretend to be me. I should pretend to be you.
Oh, man. So, going further, to date, it says, Todman and Commodore O from Star Trek Picard Season 1 are the only 24th century era flag officers to not wear command red.
Huh.
Commodore O was in charge of Starfleet security, but then it turned out that she was secretly, like, a Romulan agent.
Sure. It's kind of weird, because you don't think about it, but I guess Star Trek 6, like, came out just before this show.
Yeah, Star Trek 6 was, 91 was Star Trek 6. So
yeah,
that's not too long before.
Yeah, it's like you're like, oh wow, like that's an old timer. It was I know that movie was just like 4 years ago. So it's like Worf was in that movie.
Worf was in that movie at the same time that like Next Generation was running.
Yep.
And then we established somewhere, I don't remember if it was books or what, that's like Worf's grandfather, Worf.
Sure. Yeah, like Worf, father of Moog or something.
Yeah.
Keeping with the Star Trek tradition of members of the same family just all looking exactly the same.
Yeah. As we were just discussing.
Yep.
Got strong genes in the future.
Yep. That's just how it works. Okay, so I guess we can go into ratings if you want.
Yeah, sure. Let's do the ratings. What do you want to rate this one?
I do have a couple of little quibbles with this episode that we've already discussed, which is mainly the Eddington stuff seems totally pointless. And like I said, I like the concept of drawing a parallel between Odo and Garrick. Like, I like what they were getting at with the torture scene, but like maybe it's because it was so fast or what, but it just felt kind of forced, I thought.
Yeah.
Especially just the way they tried to draw it out. I was like, I want to go home to my people, when that wasn't really hinted at any other time in these two episodes. So I felt that could have been handled a little bit more artfully. But overall, I think it's a great payoff to episode 1. A lot of really fun twists, fun, exciting battles. So I'm going to still give it a full captain.
Okay.
So, what do you think?
That makes sense. So I like it. We did discuss, it's like the Eddington stuff did feel pointless. The torture went faster than it needed to, but yeah, we've already been through all that.
Yeah.
I love the way that it pays off the concept of not just the last episode, but like stuff that's been going on through the season.
Yeah.
The reveal of Lovok as a changeling, and that he's kind of like arranged for all of this to happen. To me, this feels like the first time that the Dominion feels scary. And I mean, we had them blowing up the Odyssey, and obviously they were like, oh, we want to intimidate you because this is the same ship as the Enterprise D, and look how easily they destroy it. That's supposed to be where we're scared of them. But it was just like, you get a bunch of ships, you make a suicide run at this ship. I'm not surprised that you blew it up. Like, right. A Romulan could have. You had like, if you had 5 Romulan ships to 1 Enterprise D, and then one of them rammed it. I also believe that. So it doesn't feel unusually scary to me. But this, where it's like, yes, they are here in the Alpha Quadrant, and not only are they here, they're impersonating important people and arranging plans that like completely obliterate 2 intelligence organizations that we've been programmed at this point to be intimidated by and think are really impressive.
Yeah.
So it's like, they are, the Tal Shiar are super spies. The founders are a level of spy beyond them.
Right.
Because of their shape-changing ability, and because nobody's looking for it, especially.
Yeah.
So this is the moment where it's like, oh crap, they're not messing around. These guys are scary. So I appreciate that a lot as a turning point for the series, where we've started building up the Dominion over the last season, and now it's like, oh wow, okay, I'm worried about these guys now.
Yeah.
Because if they're here, if they're doing this, where else are they, and what else are they doing? And even if the writers didn't know at this point, it's out there. Something's going on. So I like what we did get of the torture scene, even if it does feel a little bit rushed. I love the acting of both of the people there. I thought that they did a pretty good job with what they had. So
sure.
I like that a lot. The big space battle, it's cool to see a big space battle always. And I even really like the ending with Tane, where he's just like, he was so sure of this plan and that where he was going next. He was thinking 10 steps past this already, because he was so sure it was going to work.
Yeah.
And then it just, everything goes to shit and he loses it.
Right.
And
I
like
that was pretty good. Just like him, like realizing his own hubris or whatever, and how he'd lost a step without even realizing it.
Yep.
And I like that they didn't show what happened to Tane, perhaps learning a lesson from previous guest stars that they hastily killed off.
It's true. So, yeah, all in all, I think this may be my favorite episode of the series thus far. So I definitely am going to give it a captain.
Nice. Yeah, and you make a good point, too, because like we had the Jem'Hadar, the episode.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the episode where like that, the Odyssey or whatever blew up.
Yep.
But then after that, it was just like, oh no, everybody's like, oh no, the Dominion. And like Ambassador Troy's like, that horrible Dominion. But it's like, I guess, the Dominion is a threat, but are they really worth worrying about? And this episode definitely like makes it clear. It's like, yes, they are worth worrying about. So
even if the Federation is over here being like, we're hoping that there won't be a war, we're trying not to unduly provoke them, they're not.
Right. Yeah, they're the Dominion knows what's up. They know that confrontation is coming. They gotta make their moves. They're making their moves right now, so Alpha Quadrant needs to step up its game for sure.
Yeah, they do.
So we got any final stuff? Or
no, I don't think so. I think I've hit on everything that I wanted to hit.
See, no tangents.
I don't know. We tangented a tiny bit here and there.
Patty Duke show.
People who look like other people.
Right.
I've been on my own tangent over here where I was looking at how many ships were involved. In this battle is 150 Dominion, and then like 21 if you count the Defiant other ships, and then at the end the guy compares it to Wolf 359. I was like, yeah, how many ships were at Wolf 359?
Oh, yeah.
And it was one Borg cube, obviously, and then 40 Federation ships, 39 of which were destroyed. And I was like, okay, but which Federation ship wasn't destroyed? Like that just demands to be looked at further. And apparently the USS Awani was critically damaged and all hands lost, but was salvaged and repaired. And enough that later it joins the fleet that Picard takes to like sit at the border between the Klingons and the Romulans and make the big net to find cloaked ships trying to cross over.
Just like a little side story happening in the back of the show.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to call it there?
Yeah.
Okay, so that does it for us today. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. As always, you can check out the description. You may find links to interesting things. But I'm Fletcher, and about to say goodbye is Data.
Adios.
And until next time, don't forget to kiss the Negus stick.